You know, in pro sports, you've got your dynasties, your legends, and then you've got the other guys, the teams that just feel, well, cursed. And today we're diving into maybe the best example of that in the NBA, the Los Angeles Clippers. Their history is so wild, you'd honestly think it was made up.
And really, their whole story, their entire struggle, it all comes down to this one single massive number: 0. In over 50 years, playing in 3 different cities, the Clippers franchise has won exactly 0 NBA championships. Not one. In fact, they are the oldest franchise in all of North American pro sports to have never even made it to a championship final.
So yeah, that kind of history, it earns you a reputation. And for decades, the Clippers weren't just another team. They were a punchline. They were called a perennial loser, which is especially tough when you're living in the gigantic shadow of your incredibly successful crosstown rivals. So, how did they get that reputation? Well, the problem started right from the very beginning, during what I like to call the wandering years. This was a team that just could not find a stable home. Just look at their early history. It's a roadmap of instability. They start out in 1970 as the Buffalo Braves. 8 years later, they're in San Diego as the Clippers. And just 6 years after that, they end up in Los Angeles. That's 3 cities in their first 15 years of existence. In pro sports, that is an absolute recipe for disaster. But here's the crazy part. It wasn't always bad. Back in Buffalo, they were actually pretty good. They had a true superstar and Hall of Famer Bob McAdoo, who even won an MVP award and led the Braves to the playoffs 3 years in a row. It really looked like they were building something special. So what went wrong? A huge playoff upset? A star player gets a career-ending injury? Nope. It was something way, way weirder. This promising pro team got forced out of their own arena because of a scheduling conflict with a local college team. I am not making this up. The Canisius Golden Griffins had a pre-existing lease that gave them scheduling priority, essentially kicking a whole NBA team to the curb. So they had to pack up and move to San Diego in 1978, where they rebranded as the Clippers, a nod to the big sailing ships in the bay. But a cool new name didn't bring any new luck. They missed the playoffs for all 6 years they were there, and that whole stretch was just marred by awful foot injuries to their new star, Bill Walton.
And just when you think it can't possibly get any worse, the team moves to Los Angeles in 1984. This move kicks off what is, without a doubt, its most infamous and dysfunctional period, the Sterling era. The owner, Donald Sterling, didn't just move the team, he did it completely against the NBA's wishes without their permission. The league was absolutely furious. They slapped him with a massive $25 million fine and even sued to try and force the team back to San Diego. Sterling countersued, and he eventually won. But man, did it set a chaotic and confrontational tone for the next 30 years.
And under Sterling, things went from just bad to straight up bizarre. His ownership was a masterclass in how not to run a team. He was fined for publicly saying he wanted his team to lose to get a better draft pick. He broke league rules by making players fly in coach. It got so bad that hotels would refuse them service because of unpaid bills. And one time, a bus company literally left the team stranded at an airport. This is a professional NBA team we're talking about. It's just unbelievable. On top of all that off-court mess, it really felt like there was a curse on the court. Sports writers even had a name for it, the Clipper Triangle. Like the Bermuda Triangle, because promising players would show up and their careers would just vanish thanks to these systematic, weird injuries. A perfect example, number 1 draft pick Danny Manning tearing his ACL as a rookie. It was classic Clippers luck. And here's the kicker. All of this was happening while they shared a city with one of the most legendary, most glamorous franchises in all of sports, right? While the Clippers are getting stranded at airports, the Showtime Lakers are winning championships and becoming LA icons. The comparison is just brutal. In their first 27 seasons in LA, the Clippers made the playoffs just 4 times. The Lakers, they were busy collecting trophies. It was the ultimate sibling rivalry. If one sibling was a global movie star and the other one, well, wasn't. But then, in the 2010s, out of nowhere, everything changed. For the first time in forever, the Clippers weren't just relevant, they were one of the most exciting shows in all of sports. Welcome to Lob City.
It all kicked off with this man, Blake Griffin, the number 1 pick in the 2009 draft. Now, in a very Clippers turn of events, he missed his entire first season with a knee injury, but when he finally hit the court, he just exploded. His dunks were so insane, so high-flying, that he single-handedly put the Clippers on the map and made them must-see TV every single night.
playing right alongside him was the perfect athletic partner, DeAndre Jordan. The guy was like a human pogo stick. He was this dominant defensive force who could block shots into the third row and finish absolutely any alley-oop thrown anywhere near the rim. And then came the final, most important piece, the floor general who tied it all together, superstar point guard Chris Paul. When the Clippers got him in a blockbuster trade, it sent a message to the entire league. The Clippers weren't a joke anymore. They were for real. And that trio's explosive style earned them the perfect nickname. The story goes that when Blake Griffin heard about the trade for Chris Paul, he just yelled, "Yeah, it's gonna be Lob City!" And the name just stuck. It was perfect. It completely captured their above-the-rim, highlight-a-minute style of play. And boy, did it work for a while. The Lob City era totally flipped the franchise's identity on its head. They went to the playoffs 6 straight years. They won their first ever division titles. They went from being losers to being legitimate contenders. They sold out every single home game. The change was just radical. But that old Clippers curse, it just seemed to linger. For all their incredible regular season fireworks and viral dunks, the Lob City Clippers could never quite get over the hump in the playoffs. They were hit with untimely injuries and just heartbreaking collapses, getting bounced in the early rounds year after year, and they never even made it to the conference finals. So the Lob City era eventually came to an end, which leads the franchise to its latest chapter. And this one is all about trying once and for all to finally forge an identity that's completely separate from its haunted past and its famous neighbor. Which brings us to their biggest move yet, literally. For decades, they shared an arena with the Lakers, always feeling like the second tenant in their own city. But now, finally, they have a home to call their very own. The brand new Intuit Dome isn't just a building, it's a statement. It's a huge step towards carving out their own space in a town that's been dominated by purple and gold for so long. So they've got this state-of-the-art building for a franchise that is just desperate to build a new history. And that leaves us with the million-dollar question. After more than 50 years of wandering, of dysfunction, of just pure heartbreak, can a new home finally break the curse and let the Clippers write a brand new story? One that finally ends with a championship?